Hello and welcome to News Review. On Friday, the European Commission said it had not found evidence to conclude that the checks by Spanish authorities at the Gibraltar frontier have infringed EU law. It described the management of this crossing point as challenging and has written to both Spain and the UK with recommendations. It calls for daily cooperation between the authorities on either side of the border and says it will continue to monitor the situation. It also asked for further information from both authorities within 6 months on how the recommendations have been taken into consideration. There's more on this story on our website gbc.gi/news, and we'll have more on it next week. Also this week, Gibraltar bid farewell to Governor Sir Adrian Johns and Lady Susie Johns, who left Gibraltar by air on Wednesday. They received a 17-gun salute from the Royal Gibraltar Regiment after a very warm send-off on Main Street.
Sir Adrian Johns and Lady Susie Johns, accompanied by the Governor's ADC, John Pito, left the convent this morning to make their final walk down Main Street to the Piazza. It took them nearly an hour to make the short trip, stopping to speak and exchange well wishes with the hundreds of people who lined the streets. Large crowds gathered to say goodbye, and the Governor and Lady Johns bid their warm-hearted farewells. Young school children were particularly excited to see the pair, and Sir Adrian asked them for big salutes. They made various stops along the way, the first at the Supreme Court to say goodbye to Justice Anthony Dudley and his wife. Sir Adrian and Lady Johns have spent just over 4 years here, and it was evident from the turnout today that they are not only well liked, but they've also touched the lives and hearts of many Gibraltarians during their time here.
I'm very emotional about it, actually. I was feeling quite numb and neutral yesterday, but today it's all hitting us, I think. So just a few minutes left and we're down to the airport and gone. But thank you, Gibraltar, for everything you've done for us.
Very sad to be going. But we'll always have Gibraltar there, you know.
And you'll keep your link strong with Gibraltar?
Absolutely. Yes, we will.
The two were showered with hugs, kisses and well wishes as they slowly made their way down Main Street, also stopping to say farewell to Bishop Rolf Heskett and Father Paul Bear at the cathedral. And as Lady Johns said goodbye to familiar faces, she was visibly moved, as Sir Adrian reassured friends that they'd be back again soon. The Royal Gibraltar Regiment welcomed the pair at the Piazza, as well as various other senior dignitaries, including the Chief Minister, Fabian Picardo, with his wife Justine, the Speaker of Parliament, government ministers and opposition members. And at the steps leading up to Parliament, 5-year-old Leila De Bono was waiting to surprise Lady Johns with a bouquet of cheerful orange roses. Their final stop was at City Hall, where both past and present mayors greeted them with farewell presents and warm embraces. It is an unbroken tradition for all departing governors to leave Gibraltar by sea, but an RAF 41 Squadron jet provided transport for the outgoing governor and his wife today. On arrival at RAF Gibraltar, a tri-service guard, accompanied by the band of the Royal Gibraltar Regiment, gave a royal salute. Sir Adrian handed over the keys of Gibraltar to the Deputy Governor, Alison Macmillan, who has been appointed acting governor until the new governor, Lieutenant General Sir James Benjamin Dutton, arrives on the Rock on the 6th of December. Sir Adrian and Lady Johns then said their goodbyes to the Chief Minister and to Mrs. Picardo, and to the service commanders. And as the jet got ready for takeoff, one final honour for the governor, a 17-gun salute. After what was an extremely touching, emotional and sad farewell, it might be safe to say that Sir Adrian Johns and Lady Susie Johns will be sorely missed on the Rock.
Meanwhile, a day before his departure, Sir Adrian Johns said the relationship between the UK and Gibraltar is closer now than it's ever been during his time. And that is the important thing in the context of ongoing problems with Spain. He said he understood the frustration locally with the way the UK reacts to Spanish maritime incursions, but insisted in the significance of challenging and protesting every incursion, as the British government does. Sir Adrian Johns spoke to Stephen Nish, who asked him whether the continuing Spanish incursions were a source of regret for him as he prepared to leave Gibraltar.
Well, I don't suppose I ever came thinking one was going to solve the entire problem, but it has been a deep frustration, actually, in the fact that these violations of sovereignty are continuing, no matter what we seem to say or do. And there is unfinished business here. And so, from that point of view, I do feel that I'm leaving not a particularly good time.
Is the British government, it's an awkward question for you to answer, obviously, but is the British government doing enough? Because in Gibraltar the perception is that we have protest after protest and phone call after phone call. The ministers talk about it, but the problem persists, as you were saying. Is the British government doing as much as it could be?
Well, I think the important thing at the moment is that the relationship between the United Kingdom and Gibraltar is closer than it's ever been in my time, I think, actually, in terms of walking in lockstep together on this issue with Spain. And, you know, the United Kingdom has, as a way of diplomacy and a way of doing things, I think the important thing about what the United Kingdom does in the waters here as far as sovereignty is that it does challenge and protest every single incursion. Now, that's frustrating sometimes that we can't take a more robust and perhaps physical take on that. But in terms of protecting the sovereignty, that is a particularly important aspect.
Now, allied, of course, to the incursions, the maritime incursions, we have the continuing problems at the frontier, as you well know, and as we speak today, on the eve of your departure this morning, there were 3-hour queues, in fact, for traffic going into Spain and 1 hour coming into Gibraltar. Obviously, the visit of the EU inspectors a couple of months ago hasn't yet managed to make any difference.
No, and I think that's a deep frustration here, because these are disproportionate and unlawful issues that are happening at the border. And I think we all rather hope that the EU's coming here would make some difference. Well, we have to see the report, and what I hope it is not an anodyne report that does a bit for this and a bit for that. I hope we do see a positive result out of this.
And the Chief Minister said Sir Adrian Johns' time as Governor of Gibraltar has been a time of change, with 2 Chief Ministers, 2 Deputy Governors, 4 leaders of the opposition and 5 ADCs. However, he says the one thing which hasn't changed is the high regard and respect which Sir Adrian has for Gibraltar. Fabian Picardo was speaking at a reception hosted by the government for the departing governor.
The government reception was hosted at Grand Battery, with the Chief Minister describing Sir Adrian Johns as a governor who has demonstrated deep affection for the Rock, making it his home. He said it had been a great privilege to work closely with Sir Adrian, knowing he had never passed up an opportunity to defend Gibraltar.
Well, Adrian Johns has been here for longer than most governors. Therefore, his period has spanned a period of great change in Gibraltar. There's been a change of government, a change of chief minister. There have been huge changes in the time that Sir Adrian has been our governor. He has been able to steer us through that period of change, knowing when to take a back step, knowing when to become involved. He has had to speak to even the media on occasions, not something that a governor would often have to do. He's known how to steer the right course when he has done that, and I think that stands testament to the excellent job that he has done. But on top of all that, behind the scenes, he has been a great defender of Gibraltar. Most governors, as you know, turn native, as Foreign Office speak might suggest. I think Adrian Johns arrived native and he leaves native, and that's the best compliment I can pay him.
Fabian Picardo also paid tribute to Lady Susie Johns, whom he said had been much more than just a governor's wife and had opened the doors of the convent to the community.
You didn't just throw yourself, Susie, into charity work on Gibraltar. You also did something that nobody had done before, which was throw open the doors of the convent to everyone who wanted to come and see that place. And I think that marks a deeply positive change in the way that the convent will forever be regarded, and in particular for those who took up your invitation to come and see a place that had so often been seen as closed before.
The Chief Minister offered his personal thanks, as well as those of the people, for everything Sir Adrian and Lady Susie had done for the Rock. He closed his speech with a presentation of the keys to the city, saying this fortress will always be secure. Offering up his last few words to everyone gathered at the reception, Sir Adrian said it was an emotional time for him and Lady Johns to leave a place they had genuinely felt at home. He said it was important for a governor to understand the people in order to defend them properly, and he felt he had done that.
I always remember in just the early weeks we were here, we had flown home to the United Kingdom for something or other, and we were coming back in, and the sun was shining. We landed at Gibraltar, and Susie said to me, "It's lovely to be home." And it was a very interesting comment, because it came completely naturally, and we have felt at home here, very much at home. Very much at home in the convent, very much at home in the community in Gibraltar.
He said he would remain supportive of Gibraltar in everything he does back in the UK, and thanked the Rock for being such a welcoming community.
In other news this week, the leader of the opposition said that for as long as the Chief Minister says he should resign, he'll know that he's doing his job well. Daniel Feetham was speaking to GBC following Fabian Picardo's call last week for him to consider his position over his allegation that some of the money in Credit Finance Company Limited was being used to help people pay off their tax liabilities. Mr. Feetham also said Mr. Picardo was being disingenuous by equating tax arrears with only income tax and PAYE, as rates and import duty are also forms of taxation.
Well, look, the day that Mr. Picardo has anything nice to say about me, that's the day that I'll start worrying. For as long as Mr. Picardo says that I should resign, I know that I'm doing my job, and I'm doing my job well. Look, there are a number of points that Mr. Picardo makes. One of them is that somehow the information that I've asked in Parliament is subject to confidentiality. Because he is comparing Credit Finance Company Limited to a bank, it's nonsensical. A bank is run by its own board of directors, independent of the government. It's regulated independently by the Financial Services Commission. It has very complicated and honest rules about solvency, about capital requirements. This is a company that's been licensed by Mr. Picardo himself as the finance minister. It's owned and controlled by the government. It's government ministers that are effectively making the decisions, because you're not expecting anybody to believe that the £40 million that they've provided to the Sun Board has actually been, that's a decision that's been made by Enes Gomez, the Chief Secretary. It's a nonsense. So it's just simply not comparable. If it were otherwise, all that a government would need to do in order to keep the public finances of Gibraltar from parliamentary scrutiny is incorporate a company and put the money in a government-owned company. It's a nonsense. Now, the other point that he makes is about the tax. Look, I have said that we're entitled to scrutinise who are the beneficiaries of these payments are, and that I know that some of them are GSLP supporters. I know that some of them are GSLP supporters. I've been provided with the information. Look, that doesn't mean that all of the beneficiaries of these loans in order to pay tax arrears are GSLP supporters. But
so then what's the problem?
Because I am entitled to know what the picture is so that I can make my own mind up as to whether GSLP supporters predominantly are benefiting from this scheme. And let's not forget that the government...
Is that what you're saying, that it's predominantly GSLP supporters that are benefiting?
What I'm saying is that I do not have the entire picture. What I have said is, one, that tax arrears are being paid off by loans from Credit Finance Company Limited. On the government's own admission, this is absolutely correct. And secondly, that some of those are GSLP supporters. Now, the government has form in relation to favouring its own supporters. It's happened in the Sardinia case. It's happened in the promotion in the bus company. It's happened in other areas. And the government also has form in relation to keeping from the